at we will continue our study of the First Corinthians. So, ating na pag-aralan nung nakaraan ang chapter 1 verses 18 to chapter 14, chapter 3 verse 4, ang talata actually ay the ministry at the Corinth. So dito pinapatunayan ni Apostol Pablo, no, yung cause ng division ay the faulty view of Christian ministry. At gumamit siya ng analogy ng the builders and the temple. The builders is that we are the church, we are the temple of God. And he also used the analogy of the farmers on the field, actually, in chapter 3, verse 6 to 9, that God is actually the farmers, and rather Paul is the one who plant, and some other brothers, or Apollos is the one who watered them. So we learn that the ministry is not individual; it is a community. There is unity in working in the field, and the workers are just given opportunity by God. So then the foundation, no other foundation. The foundation is not Paul, not Apollos or Cephas and other leaders of the church at Corinth, but it is Christ is the foundations of the church in Corinth. So he gave us a warning in chapter 3, which is part of our lesson tonight. Chapter 3, warning about self-deception regarding the ministry, verse 18 to chapter 23 of verse 18 to verse 23 of chapter 3. And under this, we have the wisdom of God's people and the positions of God's people. So Paul already, so the wisdom of God's people, that's letter C. Now, letter A, the wisdom of God's people. So if we read the text, let no man deceive himself, for any man among you thinks that he is wise in this age, let him become foolish that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness before God. For it is written, he is the one who catches the wise in their craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the reasoning of the wise, that they are useless. So Paul already spent a lot of time in the first two chapters of first two chapters of Corinthians, the book of Corinthians, in showing the superiority of the wisdom of God and the wisdom of the world. So the wisdom of God, which is Christ crucified, is foolishness to men. But to the believers, it is the wisdom of God. So now he issued an exhortation to any who might think of himself to be wise in the word's wisdom. It is an exhortation to abandon the wisdom of the world, to become foolish in the word's eyes, in order to grasp the wisdom of God. So if anyone, Paul said, if anyone verse actually 18, under the wisdom of the people of God's people, if anyone among you seems to be wise, Paul being a little sarcastic here, of course, he considered the Corinthian considered himself wise in the age, and that was the problem of the people there, the church at Corinth. So the love of worldly wisdom. So if the members of the church understood that the wisdom of God is very, very important in the church, then the uselessness of the wisdoms of the world will be gone or cease. Instead, these people think about the way of men or wisdom of men. That's why the church doctrines were affected. The male and female leadership, included that, instead that only male is authorized by God as leaders of the church. Then marriage also affected with the beliefs of our members. And then we have the issue of divorce and remarriage, and marriage between the same sex. And there are some gray area between opinion, between the doctrines of the church and the opinions of men. So all of this become a problem because of some leaders employ or using the wisdom of men. And actually that's become a part of divisions in the church, because men is trying to use the wisdom of the world. Let him become fool, that he may become wise. That is in our text. So what is the one to do if they are wise in this age? If they are wise according to the measures of human wisdom, God said they are become fool that he may be wise. Let us see, the Lord knows. And that is in our text, verse 20. So the Lord knows the thought of the wise, and God has evaluated the wisdoms of the world, and he considered its foolishness, craftiness, and beauty. So this is now Paul give them a warning. Rather than using the wisdoms of men, they should use the wisdom of God. So in his warning, he's trying to teach them the positions of God's people in verses 21 to 22. So then let no one boast in men, for all things belongs to you, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, or of the world or life or death or things present or things to come. All things belongs to you, and you belongs to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. So then, Paul is introduced a conclusion. So he is looking back, he discussed about the wisdoms of man and the wisdom of God. Now he come to conclusions. And there is a principle here. Let me see now. So he said, let no one boast in men. So these people are boasting in men. For example, they are boasting that they are part of the party of Paul, the party of Apollos, the party of Tupas. So Paul is telling them, you are excited about being, man is being excited with the influence and the famous of this world than about being with God. So we value the gifts and honors of men more than the gifts and honors God's give. So how we need to hear, let no one boast in men. Yun ang prinsipyo, mga kapatid, no? Yung mga tao, lalo sa iglesia, kung sino yung maganda mag-preach, maganda ang boses, no? Talagang maganda mag-deliver, doon mayroon tayong tendency na we adore them, we follow them. And this is what the Ephesian church is. Rather, the Corinthian church. No, mas maganda ang boses ni Apollos. So doon sila pumapanig o sumasama sa grupo ni Apollos. So the principle of position, no? God said all things belongs to you, not only Paul, not only Apollos, not only Cephas and the other leaders of the church. The same thing with us. No? We are exciting with the preachers. Nature naman ng Pilipino yan. No? We are actually personality based, not on issue. Hindi yung tinuturo, kundi yung personality. Even in politics, we are more on personality. Kung sino yung famous, kung sino yung influential, ay doon tayo. So that is the principle of position. For all things belongs to you. To say I am of Paul, I am of Apollos, is to have a view that is too narrow or too limited. Both Paul and Apollos belongs to you. The whole universe is yours in Christ. Yung tinatawag natin the principle of position. Bakit isa lang ang gusto mo? Si Paul lang, no? O si brother ganito sa Pilipinas, no? Noon sa diyan sa Manila noon ay meron tayong mga paghati-hati, no? Which is belong to personality, no? Dito tayo kay Gideon Rodriguez, dito tayo kay brother Felipe Carriaga noon, no? So it's become personality. Some but indeed follow what the person teach rather than personality. So that is incredible. It means that God has given all things to his people. If you are one of his people, then the word is your personal position. This is what Jesus promised when he told his disciple, blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Meaning all the positions of God that God has, it belongs to us. Pero anong nangyari? Tayo ang gusto natin ay isa lang ang gusto natin, no? O isang bagay lang ang gusto natin. Pero sabi ng Panginoon, all things in the universe, all of the things in the universe existing is for your benefits. Even Paul says that in Romans chapter 9, verses 9:22 to 23, he said, what if God, although willing to demonstrate his wrath and to make his power known, endure with much patient vessel of wrath prepared for destructions? And he did so in order that he might make known the riches of his glory upon the vessels of mercy which he prepared beforehand for glory. So yun nangyayari, no, yung sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo dito, no? All these things that we see are so that we will experience the riches of the glory of God. Not because we are honored, we are worthy of such honor, but because he make them so that we will see his glory. So that is his promise. Even Abraham, that this is the Old Testament people were given promise that all things belongs to them. So the pattern of possessions, all things belongs to you. That is in verse 22 and verse 23, and you belongs to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. No? So we have the principle of possession. The principle of possession is that all things belongs to
Bakat lang kita, Bert, na tanong lang.
God.
Yan ang katwiran kasi sa mga iba na nakikipaghati o nagsisipirit within the Church of Christ. Sabi nila hindi naman mali yun. It's a matter of addition, not subtraction, kasi parang church planting yun. Iwalay ka doon sa isang congregation, tapos tayo pa ng isang congregation. Kaya nangyayari, yun, okay lang daw yun.
Sa addition, mabuti yun. Kasi dumami sila. Sa subtraction, hindi mabuti. Kasi nabawasan sila. No? So that principle is not really right. Bakit? Kasi yung isa, were offended. Yung isa ay natuwa. No? So kung makikita mo yung, i-analyze natin, hindi tamang prinsipyo na paghiwalayan. Kasi ang prinsipyo ng Panginoon ay there must be a unity in the congregation.
Unity sana ang ating pinakapunto dyan eh. Kasi hindi naman nadagdagan eh. Kasi ang ginagawa nila, binawas nila dun sa isa, tapos dinagdag nila sa kanila. Ganon pa rin ang total. Nagkaroon lang ng kwan ng
actually,
nag-multiply lang doon sa kabila.
Ang sabi ng iba, doon sa nadagdagan, the church is growing. But that is not true. The church is not growing. Kasi the same thing, the same disciples of God went to the other congregation. Umiikot lang, no? May tawag sila dati dyan, hindi ko na matandaan eh. Yung tiyan lumalaki lang, no? Hindi lumalago.
Obesity?
The church is...
May term kami dati dyan, hindi ko matandaan kung anong, na yung church ay hindi actually lumalago, no? Kuwan lang, no? Parang lumalaki lang ang tiyan.
Hindi lumalaki. Kaya lang, Bert, hindi is not matter of kung nadagdagan ka man o nabawasan doon ang kabilang inalisan mo. It is your motive eh. Bakit nagpatayo ka ng panibagong congregation. Hindi mo na lang sinuportaran. Hindi mo na sinuportaran. Yung motive, mali yun. Yun ang ayaw ng Panginoon, yung motive, di ba? Bakit nandun ka kay Apollos, nandun ka kay Paul? Bakit pupunta ka doon? Anong motive mo? May isa lang naman kailangan ng patunayan mo, ang Panginoon lang. At marami ka pang gusto pupuntahan. Ibang motive mo.
Meron kang motibo na hindi kagaya dito.
Bro.Bert, ang tawag
hindi problema actually ang mga leader, no? Ang problema yung mga member mismo na namimili sila ng mga leaders. No? So sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo, hindi tama yan. No? Bakit ka mamimili ng isang leader lang samantala binigay ng Panginoon lahat sa iyo yan? No? So the second principle is the pattern of position.
Wag na.
So mayroong hierarchy. All things belongs to you and you belongs to Christ and Christ belongs to God. So there is a change of position or hierarchy within all things that exist. It is the change of position as well as the change of command. So nandito yung principle na nakikita natin. No? So all things has been placed under the authority of God's people. In turn, we are under the authority of Christ. And Christ is under the authority of God. So ibig sabihin dito mga kapatid, in the patterns of position, the leadership actually, they are belong to the congregation. So if they are belongs to you, bakit ka pa mamimili? No? Yun ang the first principle, the principle of position. Dahil they are there to serve you, bakit ka pa mamimili ng isang leader? Lahat binigay na sa iyo ng Panginoon. At ikaw, the congregation, the local congregation, or the universal congregation, the universal church is under the authority of Christ. And Christ is under authority. Yun ay yung warning na Apostol Pablo sa kanila. No? So it is not good, no, for the church na you only selective of your position. You need to use them. So that is the positions of God's people. So 4 to 5 is the reflection of Apostle Paul. Let me see that. Ito, he just telling them a reflection of his own ministry. So Paul is dealing with the dangers of those leaders in the church. So now he is using his own ministry to teach them or to warn them. So under this chapter 4, verses 1 to 5, the positions of the servant or the positions of the leaders of the church, and then the evaluating the servants of God or the servants of God. So dito sa it said, reading on chapter 4, verses 1 to 2, let a man regards us in this manner. So he's talking now to Apollos, Paul, and some leaders of the church. He said, let a man regard us in this manner, as servants of Christ and stewards of the ministries of Christ, mysteries of God. In this case, moreover, it is required of stewards that one be found trustworthy. So we know what is a servant. A servant is the one who serves. He has no authority in his own. If he has authority at all, it is because he was delegated to him by another. So what is the difference between a servant and the stewards? Lahat tayo ay servants. So ito yung title ng servanthood, no? Servant and the steward. So dito, iba ang ginamit ni Apostle Paul. Usually na ginagamit na word ay doulos, which is referring to the servant. So the servant, let a man regard us in this manner as servants of Christ. So Paul used the word hyperitas, which describe a subordinate servant functioning as a free man. He does not use the most common New Testament word for servant doulos, which is designated a common slave. So we know that, no, in the Roman government during the time of Paul, there are so many servants, doulos, common servant, and it is used by the Roman official to even in the government, they call that civic o civil servant. Kaya sa atin, yung mga nasa gobyerno, tawag natin sa kanila ay civil servant. So lahat tayo, ang sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo dito ay this servant, the doulos servant, have no authority. He is merely acting upon the authority of another. If you are a civil servant in the government, if you are employee, you have no authority actually. If you have, it is delegated to you by the authority. So here also, the word hyperitas literally means under rower, in the sense that someone is rower on a big galley ship. So, though it is not the most lowly words for a servant, it is certainly not a prestigious position. And the rowers served Christ as the master pilot, helping forwards the health of the church towards the heaven of heavens. So ano sinasabi natin dito, no? Yung mga ginamit na Apostol Pablo dito ay tumutulong lamang sila, no, sa paglago o to forward the church. Alam niyo sa di ba, sa marino, yung kapitan, hindi siya laging nagdadrive dyan, no? Hindi siya lagi yung nasa manibela ng boat. Actually, is commanding. So, nandiyan yung tinatawag nating first class stewards. Sila yung nagmaman actually, no, sa para magpatuloy yung barko. Ganun din, no, tayo, no. We are a helper. So makikita natin yan, no, mamaya kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng kwan. So a position, let man, okay, we hear that. So a servant, so let man regards us in this manner as servant of Christ. Yung stewards, let a man regard us in this manner as servants of Christ and servant and stewards of the mysteries of God. So, in addition to a servant, Paul asked to be considered as a steward who was the managers of the household. So makikita natin yung difference. Ano? So in relations to the masters of the house, the stewards was a slave. But in relations to other slaves, the stewards was a master. Anong ibig sabihin dito, no? Kung tayo mga Kristiyano, yung leader natin, they were the stewards. They were the manager. They are managing the church. They have no authority. God is giving them the authority. Or the congregation giving them the authority. So, in relation to fellow servant, we are slaves. So, ang punto ni Apostol Pablo dito, that he himself has no authority of his own. He is merely acting upon the authority of another. Who is that? Jesus Christ is his authority. He is a servant for Christ. He is our fellow servant for Christ. So, yung mga leaders sa kongregasyon, mga kapatid, they were our fellow servants. And they have no authority at all. So, kung sila ay fellow servants natin, bakit tayo mamili sa kanila? No? Bakit tayo ay sasandal sa kanila? Pareho lang tayo pala kung sa ranggo pa, pareho lang tayo mga private. We have no authority. Ito sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo. So, yung mga kagaya ng tinatanong ni Mon, no, bakit sila gumagawa ng kongregasyon, no? O lumipat sila at gumagawa sila. In reality, they are support, I could not remember that term. Kinakalaban nila yung actually yung may authority. Si Christ mismo kinakalaban nila. Because Christ is trying to unite the church. But them is trying to break the church. No, so they have no authority at all. They were given authority, but they are not following the main source of authority. So here, notice that Paul does not say that he is a servant of the church or the board or the elders or of the people. So hindi siya servant ng church, hindi siya servant ng mga elders, he is not servant of the board o tinatawag natin sa panahon natin. No, we are registered in the SEC and he is not. This means that he is primary, but he is the servant of Christ. Ang sinasabi niya, he is primary responsibility is not to please people. A man who's trying to please people is not being faithful servant to Christ. So,
Kanina, Bert, sinabi mo na may kasalanan dito yung mga member dahil sumunod doon. Ngayon, sabi mo dito naman, parang pinapoint mo dito na parang siyang naghihikayat na magtayo ng sarili niyang kwan.
Siyempre. So, parang kwan yun eh. Bakit sila nagkakasala? Dahil may kwan sila eh. May umaakay sa kanila. No? Sa butas. No?
Baka hindi naman
sabi, umaakay sa atin sa butas ay si Satan, no? Pero pag sa loob ng Iglesia, pag may umaakay sa atin patungo sa kung hindi natin tinatawag na they were Satan. But they were our fellow men na sila yung umaakay sa atin papunta sa hukay. No? Dahil yung iglesia, the word stewards is oikonomos. A compound words from oikos, house, and nomos, which is so he is carrying the rules of the house, or rather he is carrying out the rules of the house. So the minister, which is given authority by the congregation, he is the steward, oikonomos, which means he is carrying out the rules or the house rule to be implemented properly. So kung hindi niya ini-implement the unity of the church, that he is self-leader, he is not appointed by the congregation, at namumuno sa mga bahagi ng membro, he is not actually carrying out the law or the house law. Your house law, they are under the law of Christ. So they were, I believe they were not doing the job as Christ appointing them. In reality, they are not appointed by the congregation to be their leader. He is a self-appointing leader. So Joseph, for example, he is held the position over the house of Potiphar. He was a steward over the house of Potiphar. And he was given the authority. He is laying down the law of the house of Potiphar. That's why when he was tempted by the wife, he refused because he was given the authority of Potiphar to manage his house. So there, you see that si Joseph mo nakita niya, although they were in the secular, he is serving the house of a servant, civil servant. Hindi niya ginamit ito. Bakit? Kasi it is against the house rule to take the wife of your master or the owners of the house. So similarly, Paul was the stewards of the mysteries of God. We have already seen Paul refer to the mysteries of God in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7. So there, we saw that it's pointing to the fact that the wisdom of God was hidden from the world, but revealed to God's people. So now we see the meaning of that. The mystery is revealed to us. That mystery is Christ is the steward, or rather Paul is the steward of Christ. Being the stewards, his job is to reveal the mystery to God's people. The same thing, no? The preachers. Yung mystery or the word of God that not revealed to the Old Testament people, Yun ang kanyang tinuturo sa mga miyembro. This is the mysteries of God that reveal to us. The hierarchy is that God has authority over Christ and Christ has authority over the church, and the leaders of the members of the church has authority over the servant, or we call that the stewards. The stewards of the ministries are just a manager. So yun ang yun ang pinapakita ni Apostol Pablo dito. Kung si Apollos ay manager lang at si Apostol Paul ay manager lang, bakit tayo magkakampi-kampi na sila ay walang authority? Dapat ay ginagamit natin sila sa ministry. No, hindi yung gamitin nila ang iglesia para sa kanilang personal na plano sa iglesia. Ang plano ni Kristo dapat ay kung hindi ka ayon sa leadership, dapat kausapin mo yung leadership. Hindi yung ikaw ang gagawa ng plano na siya ay ikaw aalis at gumawa ng Bakit aalis? Dahil alam niya na hindi niya kayang magpatuloy sa isang kongregasyon under the leadership appointed by God. Kasi hindi siya susundin ng lahat. Kundi yung susunod sa kanya, yung nabinipisyuhan. No? They were benefited from him. No? Not from God, from Christ.
Ibig sabihin, mali talagang ginawa niya.
Mali talaga, Brad. No? Kung yan is under the concept of hierarchy, ang kongregasyon ay dapat dinisiplina siya. No? Ang problema,
anong consequence dyan?
Disiplina kasi umalis na eh. Ano na lang ang gawin mo?
Doon.
You have to mark them that they are what? They are dividing the church. Kasi ang mangyari mga kapatid, later on, yung kongregasyon na kung saan siya, madidivide din yan. Pag yung tao ay hindi na siya, naubusan na siya ng bala niya, kasi ang mangyari diyan, usually yung personal na meron siya, yun ang kanyang ginagamit para yung tao sumusunod sa kanya. Hindi ang salita ni Kristo ang dahilan kung bakit sumusunod sila sa kanya. Kundi kung ano man na meron siya. No? Makikita mo yan mga kapatid. So, the requirements of the servant. So, the position, now the requirement of the servant. So the requirements of the servant, it is required of stewards that one be bound trustworthy. So yun ang ang requirement ng servant is involved trustworthiness. So the important quality of the stewards or a minister is that he be trustworthy in carrying out his responsibility. He has been entrusted with his master's house and station. Unless he is faithful, he will bring them to ruin. So, yung tao mo na tinutukoy mo, are they faithful in the congregation? That hindi mo rin masabi kasi hindi naman siya leader eh. He is not the manager of the house. He assumed the stewardship of the congregation, but he could not do that in the same congregation. Kaya umalis eh. Kasi hindi siyang tunay na steward ng kongregasyon. Kasi kung siyang tunay na steward ng isang kongregasyon, susundin siya ng lahat ng membro. Kaso lang, alam niya na hindi siya susundin ng authority of the congregation, which is the people of God. Kaya alis siya para magloon sa isang kongregasyon na siya ang susundin. But actually, he is not the stewards there. Kasi ang mangyari, hindi niya kaya maging steward, mag-hire siya ng isang tao na maging steward. At yun ang kukontrolin niya. So, ano nangyayari? Because the requirements of the servant is trustworthy, maruruin yung kongregasyon. Nasisira. Bakit? Kasi
mali yung mag-appoint siya. Kaya brother, mali yun mag-appoint siya o maghanap siya ng o workers or full-time workers na siya na mag-appoint.
So makikita mo siya ang nagdahilan kung bakit umalis siya, no? Dahil hindi naman talaga siya ang stewards o siya ang manager, mag-appoint siya ng manager na kayang magturo ng doktrina ng Panginoon or the one who responsible of the house rule. Kasi hindi niya kayang igampanan ang house rule kasi wala nga siyang wisdom, wala nga siyang knowledge. So mangyari, he will hire someone acting as a manager pero actually siya yung nagmamanan sa manager na yan.
Ano po, control.
Oo, so hindi yung kanina pinag-aralan natin the hierarchy of the position, no? So Christ is the authority of the church, and the authority in the church is all the members. And Christ also under the authority of God the Father.
So, Brad, excuse me, Brad. So, kailangan pala, Brad, sa isang congregation, yung leader ay talagang competent. Ano, Brad, no? Bago
he is actually trustworthy.
Oo, trustworthy. Tapos,
he does not require high IQ. He does not require good looking. He does not require na meron siyang popular o meron siyang pera. No? It requires faithfulness.
Dapat Bible verse din siya, Brad, yung talagang alam niya yung genuine heart niya ba? Genuine heart. Para talaga yung kanyang humanities talaga yung siya, yung main, yung parang doon talaga yung puso niya sa member niya. Kaya umaalis yung iba doon kasi nakikitaan yata siya na hindi siya makadiyos o yun Di ba, Brad? Yun ang problem ng current. Kasi kung makitaan mo nga sa isang congregation na different doon sa isa, makikita mo doon na lalago ka sa isang congregation, kahit ako servant, lumipat ako doon sa steward na yun. Kasi hindi nga maganda pampalakad ng isang leader doon. So ano kayang solution dyan, Brad, pag mga ganyang steward?
So, alam mo mga kapatid, alam mo wala tayong control sa ibang congregation kasi ang bawat kongregasyon ay independent.
Okay.
Ngayon, anong solusyon natin? Maghihintay na lang tayo, no? Na time of judgment. So dati natin pinag-aralan, a builder. Analogy of the builder. So a builder build the congregation on no other foundation but Christ. But if the builders build the congregation with personal motive, ano yung build niya? Yung ginagamit niyang foundation ay kahoy, ay damo, no? Hindi yung gold or silver, no? Or yung tamang turo. No? So in the end of the day, we will be judged by God. So anong gagawin ng kongregasyon na kung saan umalis? We need to move forward. Let God judge. So magpatuloy tayo, magpalago tayo because God is with us. Bakit God's required faithfulness of his servant? Because he has first been faithful to us. So Christ is faithful to us, the servant must be faithful also to the congregation. He has been faithful in saving us. He is faithful in sustaining us. He is faithful in answering our prayer. He is faithful in protecting us. So he is faithful in promoting the means by which we can serve him. So, yung faithfulness actually involves perseverance. It demands that you keep on keeping on. It means that you don't turn back once you have begun. So ano man ang nangyari sa atin sa kongregasyon, mga kapatid, mayroong mga unfaithfulness, assuming the stewardship of the church, let God judge them and let moving forward. No? So we are not supposed to, itong gagawin, anong gagawin natin, no? Problema ng Diyos yun para sa kanila. Kung anong gagawin sa kanila. Ang problema natin ay magpatuloy tayo sa ating gawain.
Hello, Brad.
Forward.
Hello, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Hello po, Bro.Bert.
Mm-hmm.
Ayaw ko sana kayong i-interrupt po, kasi sundan ko lang po yung mga tanong ni Brad at saka ni Sister.
Mm-hmm.
Sabi niyo po, yung trust and obey, yun po yung dapat, no?
Mm-hmm. Faithfulness.
Po, yung pagtatapat, katapatan, no? At pagsunod. Pero po, no, sa mga nangyayari, no? Tila baga minsan yung mga may mga kapatid, no, na mga leaders na minsan sila yung nagpapagawa ng nagpapagawa ng mga chapel natin o mga chapel, no? Bahay sambahan.
Mm-hmm.
So parang dumarating na sa punto na magkaminsan, no, na dahil sila yung may malaking ambag sa pagpapagawa ng isang sambahan, ng isang kongregasyon, para bagang yung nahuhulog minsan yung mga kapatid, no, yung na parang dapat siya na yung sundin or siya parang nagkakaroon siya ng authority kasi malaki yung naiambag niya. So minsan nakikita rin ng mga kasamahan niyang mga leaders na para bakit ganito ang nangyayari. And then minsan may mga pagkakataon na at totoo talagang nangyari, Brad, no? Ayaw ko lamang pong magbanggit pero totoong nangyari. Magkaminsan lumalabas talaga yung leader, umaalis sa kongregasyon. Nagpapakita na hindi na siya masaya, kasi nakapokus na yung mga kapatid doon sa isang leader na gano'n, no? Isa o dalawa, no? Doon na halos nakapokus at yung trust parang hindi na sa Panginoon nangyayari yung trust, nandoon na sa leaders na malaki ang ambag sa pagpapagawa. So totoo namang nangyayari, no? Based on my experience, no? Ayaw naman natin itago. Opo, Brad. So ngayon po, ang tanong ko po, Brad,
stewards ng Diyos.
Yes. Brad, ang tanong ko po, kung may opportunity naman yung leader na yon, may opportunity naman na sabi nyo nga na hindi na magpapaalam siya ng mabuti sa kongregasyon, hindi dahil sa problema na yon, kundi or sa sitwasyon na yon, kundi magpapaalam siya para mag-plant siya, no? O magsimula. Hindi masama po ba yun, Brad? Yung may opportunity sa iba, no? Sa ibang lugar o sa ibang na may pagkakataon, no? Masama po ba yun, Brad? O malaking kawalan sa kongregasyon?
Tingnan natin. Nagpaalam siya na magpupunta sa ibang kongregasyon.
Or magano po, Brad? Magplant ng bago, no? Opo.
Ito ba yung tunay na nagpaalam ba yung tunay na stewards ng Diyos o
Yes.
yung nag-assume
Mhm.
nag-assume ng stewardship? Sino doon?
So, isa po doon, no? Kasi nga po, magkaminsan, Brad, minsan, ang leadership kasi po minsan, Brad, sabi nyo nga kanina, nabanggit ni Brother Mon, no, na parang ang nagiging dahilan magkaminsan po ay yung mga mga members, parang sila minsan na nagtutulak na alis na lang tayo dito, ganto ganyan, no? So, ang gusto ko pong sabihin, Brad, kung mayroon namang magandang pagkakataon na mag-plant ang leaders na yon, magpaalam siya sa congregation, tama po ba yung mga ganong desisyon?
Oo, tama. Pero kung tama yun na magpaalam
Yes,
ka. No?
Opo.
Dapat ang kongregasyon na pinagpaalaman mo ay partner mo rin actually. No? For the
Yes.
first, kagaya ng Pasay noon, meron silang opportunity to plant churches.
Yes po.
Paligid nila, no? But yung partner nila, yung Pasay. Kasi kung hindi siya partner, bakit mayroong samaan ng loob kung nagpaalam? So hindi nagpaalam kasi bakit hanggang ngayon is a mystery. Para bang, bakit kaya umalis? Ano? Nagpaalam nga, bakit parang may tampuhan? No? So hindi kulay actually, no? Parang palabas lang na nagpaalam. At no? Kasi kung totoong mayroong opportunity, yung kongregasyon na dati niya, dati niya siya membro, dapat isa partner. Pero hindi, no? Anong nangyari? Dahil meron siyang kakayahan, he totally sever himself or themselves sa kongregasyon at nagtatag sila ng another congregation. Kasi pag walang sama ng loob, dapat naging partner ang kongregasyon kung saan siya nanggaling.
Thank you po, Brad. Thank you po.
So yung sunod nating pag-aralan actually ay evaluating the servants of God. Yun ang problema natin, no? So requirement, this is the most quality. What is faithfulness? It's involved commitment. It's involved committing yourself to carry out the job assigned to you, no matter what the cost. It's also involved perseverance. It demands that you keep on keeping on. It means that you don't turn back once you began. No? So, ito yung tunay na stewards ng Panginoon. No? So now, there is the evaluating the servants of God. Ito yung ministry ni Paul ay ginamit niya to state that. But to me, it is a very small thing that I should be examined by you or by any human court, in fact. I do not even examine myself, for I am conscious of nothing against myself. Yet I am not by this acquitted, but the one who examined me is the Lord. Therefore, do not go on passing judgment before the time, but wait until the Lord comes, who will both bring to the light the things hidden in the darkness and disclose the motives of men's heart. And then each man's praise will come to him from God. So itong evaluation natin, no? Makapasa ba siya, no? Sabi na Apostol Pablo, I do not even think. I am not even examining myself. For I am not conscious against myself. Alam niya, mga kapatid, no? So, see, tatlong bagay makikita natin to na nag-evaluate sa atin. No? We are evaluated by the world, the court of men. They are evaluate about yourself, what you will see about yourself. Then, evaluation what God see or say about you. So ito ang tatlong yan, no? See what the word say about you, see what say about you, see what God says about you. So no, ito yung sinasabi niya, no, court, myself, and God. So the word evaluation is unimportant. Verse 4, but to me it is a very thing, a small thing, that I should be examined by you or by any human court. So, sabi ng Apostol, bakit sinabi ng Apostol Pablo dito? Kaya bawat leader doon, si Apollos, si Peter, wala naman si Pedro doon, no? But narinig lang yung teaching ni Peter, no? Ang sabi niya ay, it is not a popularity contest. The object of this contest was to find out the best minister of the church. Some choose Paul, some choose Apollos or Tupas. But Paul was not upset that he might not have won the majority vote in that contest, because he knew that it does not really matter how the Corinthians evaluate him. Their evaluation was not that matter on the long run. So, bakit sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo dito? Kasi ganun ni si Tupas, si Apollos eh. Sabi, it doesn't matter if you evaluate me. What matters is actually God. And the other leader too, no? So there is another one, which is the self-evaluation. Self-evaluation is not much better. Verse 24, in fact, I do not even examine myself, for I am conscious of nothing against myself. Yet, I am not by this acquitted. So, although sabi niya, hindi ako nagkakaroon ng self-evaluation. Even the congregations evaluate me. It doesn't matter. It does not. By this, have acquitted, yung isang tao, lagi niyang, he always just, kung mayroon kang self-evaluation, mayroon kang justification lagi sa ginagawa mo. Kaya sabi ni Apostol Pablo, by this, I am not acquitted. Paul was very careful not to spend much time focusing upon himself or self-evaluation of his ministry. He was aware that it is all too easy to fall into trap of spiritual introspection. How many times we are falling into the trap of evaluating you. So, okay na ito, maganda na yung ginagawa ko, no? To you, your evaluation, kung meron kang self-evaluation as a minister, kaya tayo dito, nag-aaral tayo, maging ministro tayo balang araw. No? So, you are trying, kasi pag ganito, may evaluation ka, you are always comparing yourself to other minister of other congregation. Ano mangyari kung i-evaluate mong sarili mo at i-compare mo sa ibang ministro. Of course, you will always have justification. Maganda. Kasi sila, mayaman naman sila. Meron silang ganito, meron silang ganito. Ako, I already pwede na ito, no? You are satisfied with your performance. Kung yun ang self-evaluation natin, no? But Paul said it doesn't matter. No, so, ito yung sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo sa atin. Yung importante, ay sabi niya, ay yung pangatlo, no? God's evaluation is what counts. He said, the one examined me is the Lord. So it doesn't matter how you evaluate me as a leader because you choose me as a leader. Paul, think about that. It doesn't matter how my performance is. If I may evaluate myself, I planted so many congregation, but it doesn't matter. Its matter is the one who examined me is the Lord. So God's evaluation is the one counts. Oh, wala na, no. And so we see from a very limited perspective. You even look at your own life from a limited perspective. You cannot see what effect your life has had on others. You cannot see where your life is going. But God can see your life in a single glance. He can see the entire scope of who you are. There is nothing that is hidden from him. Even your most secret thoughts and motives are open book to him. The same thing, no? Si Apostle Pablo is talking about himself, but the same thing with other ministers, like Apollos, like Tupas. Only God knows of their thoughts and their motives in serving God. Because of this, Paul gives the Corinthians the exhortation. It is expressed first in a negative term, then in a positive term. He did that in the first chapter. Now, here is the negative exhortation, negative express. Therefore, I said, do not go on passing judgment before the time. This is the first time Paul conclusion. He began with what they should not do. And the reason he tells them not to go on judgment, passing judgment, is evidently because they were passing judgment. So, bakit sila nagpa-passing judgment? Because they choose Apollos, they chose Paul, they choose Cephas, or the group of Jesus, which apat na grupo doon, no? We always keep mentioning these three groups, no? The group of Paul, the group of Cephas, the group of Apollos. We seldom mention the group of Jesus. It does not mean that they are not wrong, because Christ did not telling them that they should build a party or a divisions in the church. His teaching is to unite the congregation. So this is a message to us. We ought not to try to pass judgments about the motives of our Christian leaders. So ganun din, no? Isang leader na kagaya ng example kanina, he feel that he is no longer serving the congregation. So nagpaalam siya, no? O to, may mga bukas dito na opportunity. God gives me the opportunity. So I will go there, and I'm talking about the true servants of God. Siya yung leader talaga, no? Different story naman yan pag siya yung nag-assume ng leadership at nagpaalam siya, doon na lang ako sa kabila kasi hindi ako pwede maging leader dito kasi may true stewards na, kaya doon ako sa ibang congregation, no? So ibang story yan, no? But we are talking here about the stewards that picture by Paul. We will not pass judgment with them. Kaya rin, no, mga pangyayari sa kongregasyon natin, no? Sabi ko nga kanina, let moves forward. Let God pass judgments on them. That is when times come. So, does this means that we ought to ignore their sin or their false doctrine? I do not believe so. Rather, I think that it means that I must realize that I do not have the full pictures, and that my judgment is going to be limited. It means that I cannot judge those things that are hidden. It means that I cannot judge someone's motive. Only the Lord can do that. So, yun ang negative exhortation niya. No. Do not go on passing judgment before the time. So, mayroon namang positive exhortation. No? O, hindi ko yata nalagay, no? Hindi ko nalagay, no? Yung positive is this, no? Kadugtong yan ng verse 5. But wait until the Lord's come, who will both bring light to the things hidden in darkness and disclose the motives of man's heart. And then its man's praise will come to him from God. So yung negative, do not pass judgment. The positive is there is a time of judgment that everything will reveal. This is the coming day when all will be brought to light. The judgments of God will be complete judgment. Nothing can be left out. Nothing will remain hidden. It will be open to all. So the question there is, are you ready to meet that judgment? No. You might be able to fool some people about your spiritual condition. Not only those leaders that go to other congregation or build their own congregation, establish their own congregation. We might learn all this writing to say that you have a sound, very sound spiritual teaching. Who knows what you are thinking? Only God knows. And those people who lift us, we don't know if they have the right motives. So if we are, ang tawag natin, na kwan tayo, nasa lugar na kung saan tayo ay parang agrabyado tayo. Ang sabi ng Apostol Pablo ay, let God judge them. Kaya yung suggestion ko ay let's move forward. Kasi kung lagi nating iniisip yon, the work of the church ay mantala. Ang gawin natin, let God judge them. Let moves forward. Let work together for the glory of God. No? Mayroon akong kaibigan dyan na sabi niya, bakit gusto, mayroong bagong camp dito, bakit hindi tayo magtatag ng school? Sabi ko, ang dami ng eskwelahan dyan. Beside, we are under one school, which is the same, the same purpose. Why not just support one school? No. Actually, I was offered by Bear Valley to have another school there. I said, ang dami na eskwelahan doon eh. No. So my classmates in Sunset actually, siya rin yung dating director ng extension doon sa Bear Valley. Nag-uusap kami, but he's more on, maybe siguro imbitahin natin sila dahil sa ko naman sila dyan. No? They have ministry there sa Sunset extension. But ito mga kapatid, so, the faulty view of Christian blessings in verse 6 to 13. Chapter 4, 6 to 13. So here, Paul exposes the arrogant of self-evaluations of the Corinth as the root cause of divisiveness in the light of the fact that all they have is gift and self-abasing lives of the apostle. Ito yung tinatawag natin, the faulty view of the Christian blessing. Ibig sabihin, itong Kristiyano na ito, marami siyang pera, blessings or gifts, or marami siyang gifted. So, now, these are evaluation, wrong or arrogant self-evaluations of the Corinth. Siguro ganun din ang dito, no? The faulty view of that person or that group of persons about the blessings. Dahil sila yung marami, at marami, kagaya sabi natin, marami silang binibigay sa church, at dapat sila ay may part to control the church. It is a faulty view of Christian blessings. So Paul used himself and Apollos as an illustration of, ito yung sa verse 6. Hindi ko alam kung nalagay ko yung verses dito. Ito, the faulty view. Brothers and sisters, I have applied this to Apollos and myself for your sake. You should learn from us not to go beyond what is written in Scripture. Then you would arrogantly place one of us in opposition to the other. What says that you are better than the other people? What do you have that wasn't given to you? If you were given what you have, why are you bragging as if it were in a gift? You already have what you want. You already become rich. You become kings without us. I wish you really were king so that we could be kings with you. So, ang sabi ko nga kanina, sa verse, in-expose ni Paul ang arrogant of the evaluation of the congregation at Corinth. So in verse 6, Paul used himself and Apollos as an illustration of those limited what is written, in order to prevent the Corinth from the arrogant or exalting one above the other. So they feel that they have developed a spiritual superiority conflict. They become impatient with another who did not see things exactly the way they did. They become arrogant with any one who disagree with them. The reason for this is that they lost sight of the principles of grace. No? Hindi ko yata nasulat din dito, no? So the principles of the reality of grace in verse 7. And what do you have that you did not receive? But if you did receive it, why do you boast as if you have not received it? So the principle of grace, it states that everything you have was given to you. You don't earn it. You did not deserve it. Kaya kung nagbibigay ka ng marami sa iglesia, you don't deserve to be the stewards of the congregation. That is grace from God. You should continue it, doing it. You don't deserve it, but you want to earn it. You have to earn respect. You want to earn the right to be stewards of the congregation. That is not right under the principles of grace. Kasi marami tayong contribution. May mga tao na ang contribution niya is to teach the congregation. May mga tao that God bless them more and their parts of the congregation is to share that blessings. It becomes wrong when you have a wrong perspective of the gracing or the blessings of God. So there is no room for boasting in the life of Christian. Everything you have and everything you are was given to you by God. If you are going to boast, then you can only boast about how great God is. No? Hindi ko alam kung na anyway, we have two servants here. So we have the servant, the arrogant servant, and the faithful servant. So ito yung arrogant servant that he missed the real principle of the grace. So verse 8 actually, ay nandun yung sarcasm, reactions of sarcasm. Suppose sabi niya, you are already filled. You have already become rich. You have become kings without us. And I would indeed that you become kings so that we also might reign with you. So ito sabi ng Apostol Pablo, kuha na kayo no? Kasi pinili niya si Apollos, pinili niya si si Tupas. Ang iba naman pinili si Paul. Sabi niya, mayaman na kayo. Bakit mamili pa kayo? Sarcasm, kung talagang mayaman kayo, you become kings without us. Hindi nyo kailangan si Apollos, hindi nyo kailangan ako, hindi nyo kailangan si Paul. I wish, sabi niya, if you are really kings, would like to reign with you. That is the evaluation of the arrogant servant. He missed the principle of grace. So, he says, para sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo, you have left us mere apostle, far behind your spiritual growth. We are still only lowly servant while you become highly kings. No? Yan ang sinasabi ni Apostol Pablo. No? Ito rin, no, nangyayari sa atin sa purigasyon. No? The true servant of God, ang sinasabi niya, oh, you live us as a true servant. Actually, we are the one, you are the one who are stewards of your spiritual growth. But you don't want to reign with us. Ayan yung mamuno kami na kasama nyo. Bakit? Kasi na-misplace ka nila yung principle of grace. Instead of exalting God, they are now exalting their own estimation. Ito dapat ang mangyari dahil ito yung nakikita ko. No? You are not, because you are not the true managers of the congregation. Yung appointed is the one. Kung mayroon ka man, mga kapatid, na meron kang nakikita na mabuti sa congregation, huwag mong itago. Kundi i-share mo ito para lalong lumago ang congregation natin. Yung itago mo ito at gamitin mo doon kung saan ka pupunta. So, mga kapatid, no? So the faithful servant, the faithful servant. So the faithful servant, ito kaninang arrogant servant, verses 7 to 8. For who regards you as superior? And do you have that you did not receive? But if you did receive, why don't you boast if you have not received it? You already feel you have already become rich, you have become kings without us, and I would indeed that you will become king so that we might reign with you. No? Nabanggitan natin kanina ito. So yung reality of grace, nandito pala kanina. No? And what you have that you did not receive. Siguro ang perspective ng mga ito ay na-receive na nila yung blessing. Meron silang isang blessing na iniisip nila hindi nila natanggap. Ano yung blessing na yun? Dalawa, no? The blessings of the congregation of leadership. Second, the blessings of respect of the congregation. You know, respect, you need to earn that. You don't buy it. So, mga kapatid, you cannot boast of what you have because you miss the reality of grace. So, yung reaction ni Apostle Paul, sarcasm, sana kumayaman na kayo. Gusto kong maghari na kasama nyo. Kaya na sinabi ko, kung talagang ito ay tama yung desisyon na umalis, sabi ni Apostle Paul, abay, dapat kasama kami. Kasama kami diyan. Bakit nyo kami iniwan? The true stewards of God. Bakit nyo pinili ito? Bakit nyo kami iniwan? Dapat lahat ay gamitin. Lahat na stewards. Kung meron ka man plano na magtatag ng congregation, ay i-involve mo yung congregation na kung saan nandun ka. I-involve mo yung faithful servant. So yung faithful servant is verse, for I think God has exhibited us apostles last of all, as men condemned to death because we have become a spectacle to the world, both to angels and to men. We are fools for Christ's sake, but you are prudent in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. You are distinguished, but we are being honored. So ito yung Sinasabi ni Apostle Paul sa faithful servant. No? He is now comparing between the arrogant servant and the faithful servant. O sige nga, kami mga servant, open book kami na to other people we are full. Even to the what we are, we become a spectacle. Sabi niya, our life is open. Sa mundong ito, sa mga angel, at sa mga tao. So, Paul now point to what is the true Christ, the true servant of Christ look like. It is not a pleasant picture. It is not a portrait of comfort. Far from being most glorious and proud, the servant of Christ is presented as being despised. So there is a reason for this. The world will always despise the servant of God. So maalala niyo yung dati nating pinag-aralan, the natural man who think like the thinking of the world. And we have the spiritual man who think the spiritual things. So ito yung sinasabi niya, we are already the spectacles of death. He said, for I think God exhibited us apostle last of all. So verse 11, to this present hours we are both hungry and thirsty, and are poorly clothed, and are roughly treated, and are homeless. And we toil, working with our hands. When we are revived, we bless. When we are separated, we enjoy. So, no, kaya sabi nga natin, kung isang kongregasyon, yung arrogant dapat na yun will miss the opportunity of learning the grace of God. Dapat sabi ni Apostol Pablo, gusto namin maghari, no? Imbes na tulungan yung isang ministro, na sabi ni Apostol Paul, walang-wala nga kami, no? We are homeless. We are roughly treated. We are poorly clothed. Dapat nasuportahan yung ministro na yan. Abay, hindi. Ano nangyari? Umalis pa para hiyain yung ministro na yan. Kami ay, siguro inisip, we are more blessed. Kung if you are the true managers of the church, bakit hindi ka blessed? Kami blessed kami, no? Yun ang nakikita natin sa mga denominational, no? Yung they are mocking our minister because they said they are not blessed. If they are true leaders of the church, bakit hindi sila blessed, no? Mga kapatid, no? So, sabi ni Apostle Paul, we are revived, but God bless us. We are persecuted, but we endure. So, yung tunay na steward ng Diyos, he always enjoy it. Sometimes he don't just talk about that. Actually, they didn't want to talk about that. But the members still talking about that. Kaya si Apostol Pablo, sa pag-aral natin, let God judge them. Siguro mga kapatid, ano, so we will discuss more of this the next time. No, hindi ko mako ng aking parang nawala yung iba, no? Ipatuloy natin ito yung the faulty view of Christian blessing. At tapusin natin itong section na ito. Okay. So we will continue our study next time. Maganda ito, no? I think this is the answer to your problem there. So do you have any question at this time? Malinaw, ano, mga kapatid, let the problem, ilagay na natin yan at move forward.
Agree, I agree. Sabi ng talata, sa pagbabalik ng Panginoon, makikilala ang kanilang mga motibo. Sige, okay na tayo ron.
Ayos yung Brad. Brad John, may iba rin akong kwan eh.
Another theory?
Argument mo eh.
May theory ka?
Oo. Ayoko na, siyempre, alam natin na kung mali man sila, ayaw ko na dumami pa sa, may kasabihan pa na ayaw natin dumami pang kasamaan sa mundo. Hindi naman siguro na sabihin masama na ipaubayan na natin sa Panginoon ang lahat sa judgment. Kung nakikita natin na hindi na mabuti ang ginagawa, sabi nga ni San Pablo mismo, sabi niya sa Hebrews 3:12, thick head, magsiingat kayo, mga kapatid. Pinapalalahanan niya tayo. Ang words do not take head, kailangan may ginagawa tayong action. Na hindi lang tayo na palaging nandyan sa inaapi-api. Kasi
alaga, ayaw mo magpaapi.
inaapi-api, kailangan ang katotohanan, kailangan mo ibabaw ang katotohanan, hindi ba?
Brad,
Bakit Brother Mon, inaapi-api ka ba?
Kung tayo personal inaapi-api, ang iglesia ng Panginoon. Ang iglesia ng Panginoon eh. Ang kabuuan ng
Yes, Brad.
iglesia. Hindi
Yes,
lang
Brad.
personal yun eh, sa isang tao na. Kunwari may kontra sa isang tao. Ang kinukontra mo ng buong iglesia eh. Umalis ka doon, naggawa ka lang sa sarili mo. Sino bang kinukontra mo eh? Yung isang tao lang ba? O, kunwari, nanghila ka pa ng mga kapatiran, sabi ni Brother, is parang kinonsinti pa ng mga kapatiran rin. O, damay-damay na sila. O, anong gagawin mo? Hayaan lang damay-damay na. Marami pa sila makuha na convince ng mga kapatiran. Hindi ba na tayo naawa sa mga kapatiran natin na nalilinlang nila? Nadadamay nila. At iba pa, may mga leaders pa nadadamay. O may mga leaders pa sumasang-ayon doon. Paano yun? Hayaan na lang natin bang ganun na hintayin na lang natin mag-judgment. Mabuti kung
naubos.
Mabuti kung sila lang may madamay pa mga kasamahan natin. Ma-convince nila. Kasi sabi ko, money speak. Di ba kung minsan ang money speak? So, yung kapangyarihan.
Mon. Ang problema na actually is the root cause of that is spiritual problems. Yung mga sumasama, kagaya sa pag-aral natin, yung pag-iisip nila ay pag-iisip ng mundo pa rin. Kampi-kampihan. Na hindi dapat yun ang mangyayari.
Eh, makikita mo nga mga sumasama doon, mga leader pa eh.
Ano pang magawa mo para sa kanila? Magpanalangin ka na lang na ang Diyos padalhan sila ng isang tunay na stewards at maturuan sila ng tama at magising sila sa spiritual problem nila.
Akala ko manalangin ng kidlat kulog.
Malupit yung Brad ah.
Sana kung pati kidnap.
Ngayon muna ang magawa natin talaga panalangin na lang. No? Yun ang the most important things, we need to pray for them. Pero pag hindi yung ang gawin mo para sugurin sila, naturuan sa ay mali kayo, ganito.
Mahina yata dito.
Walang mangyari.
Doon lang. Yung po dito.
The most thing that you will do, kung talagang gusto mo ng action, ask God. Pray for them. Pray for everything that happening. So the root cause is spiritual. Their mind is the mind of this world. Tayo mga nakaintindi, we have the mind of Christ. So ano yung mind of Christ? We love them. We need to pray for them. So then we need to wait. What God's action pass on in the future rather. Mon, baka magkaroon ka ng sakit sa puso niyan.
Hinahayaan ko lang yan, pero kung nakikita ko lang nakakaawa kasi ang iba mga kapatid natin. Hindi, simple concern lang tayo sa mga kapatid natin. Hindi naman natin personal yan, pero we are a servant keeper eh. Kailangan na tayo, may concern tayo sa ating kapatid. Siyempre, hindi naman nahayaan na lang natin ang events mangyari at least. Kung may magawa tayo, may kunting bagay na nagawa natin, gawin natin. Yun ang sinasabi ko. Kaya i-print mo to, i-send mo kay Brother John para in some other way, ma-send natin sa iba natin mga kapatid, causes of division.
Para matauhan, Brad.
Matauhan.
Oo. Kulang pa na yan,
Kung
Brad.
makidlat. Kung di makakaya ng kidlat, matauhan.
Kulang sa leaflet.
Baka naman lalong ma-separate yung magkakaroon ng division.
Meron dito sa verse 12 yung characteristic ng faithful servant na binabanggit. Sabi po dito sa verse 12 ng chapter 4, 1 Corinthians, we labor, sabi niya, with our hands, sabi niya, being reviled, still we bless. Being persecuted, we suffer it. Yun yung characteristic ng true servant ng ating Panginoon na dapat dinidevelop natin. Wag nating isipin na develop ng iba, develop natin personal. Yun po yung dito, yung nakita ko na magandang maging characteristic natin sa pag-aaral.
Faithful servant.
Mag-suffer pala tayo, Badmon, suffer.
Ganun si Apostol Pablo, nag-suffer din siya, no?
Yes.
Ito yung sinasabi ng Apostol Pablo, sabi niya.
Tiis ba? Tiis.
Yes.
Sabi ko na nga sa inyo, magtiis kayo eh. Tanggapin nyo na lang yan eh.
Oo. Easy.
Kayo kasi...
pinagpapala naman, okay lang.
In due time, sabi nga ng Biblia, in due time. Sabi nga, God will reveal.
Silang easy.
Brother Bert, kailangan ituro itong chapter 3 at chapter 4 para maintindihan din nila. Kasi dito napapaloob yung yung ating mga di ba? Ang napasin ko rin, Brad, kung hindi naman dito sa ito, yung pag-participate ng mga kababaihan ba? Basically po talagang dapat mag-handle ng doon. Kasi meron na silang may mga scheduling na sila na pag yung ladies fellowship, gano'n. Sabi ko, hindi ko alam kung itong mga parang meron na silang schedule. Diba may sarili na silang mga itinuturo, gano'n.
Yung mga kababaihan nila, no?
Brad, parang nalalayo na, parang dati yan, konti-konti, pero mas nagaling na sila, parang napapasin ko, parang hindi na sila nagkakos sa mga leaders eh. Parang tuloy-tuloy na nila.
Talo na sila sa kanila.
Anong masabi mo doon?
Yung makikita natin, sabi natin, hindi sila tunay na minister o stewards of God.
Sayang.
Kung talagang tunay sila na steward ng God, yung steward is the one who manages the rules, the house rule. So, mayroon tayong house rule. Yun ang pag-aaralan natin dito sa Corinto, no? Yung mga babae, meron silang position sa church.
Na dapat alam ng mga leaders.
Oo. Mga lalaki, meron din, no? So, yun nga ang thinking natin, no? Kung ang thinking natin ay yung natural thinking, the worldview, ay talagang yung house rule na sinasabi natin, hindi ma-implement. Kasi yung stewards mismo, hindi siya hindi siya faithful stewards. Ano siya? Arrogant stewards.
Ano
Kasi
Brad, arrogance stewards po?
dahil meron siyang konsepto that God bless him. Yung na-miss nila natin kanina, yung tinatawag natin the mercy. Grace of God. The teaching of the grace of God, no? Na sila, ang isip nila, well, they are blessed, they are true because God provide them abundant money, abundant blessings. Pero hindi. Hindi yun ang basihan. Ang basihan, are you a faithful servant? Ano yung faithful servant? Kagaya sabi ng Apostol Pablo, they revive us. They are talking against us. But we just enjoy it. No, so,
Dapat pala command Brad sa loob ng church.
kagaya ng arrogant servant, they taught and developed a spiritual superiority complex. Nagbasa lang ng diaryo nagbasa lang ng gospel sa diaryo, ay, so kwan na. Akala mo, spiritual na sila, no? Ganun din, nag-aralan ng konti. They develop a superiority complex, spiritual, which is actually, they don't have. They become arrogant. Disagree with other people because yung sabi nga natin, ang kakaunting kaalaman ay
Nakakapuri din.
delikado.
Kaya ano lang natin ang arrogant servant within the church, Brad?
Yeah, well, sabi nga ni Apostol Pablo, maghintay ka, ang Panginoon ng magkuhan sa kanila, mag-judge.
Hintay.
Kaya isa sa mga faithful Christians, I said, they have the endurance.
Kaya lang nangyayari kung minsan, yung arrogant dumadami. dumadami ang
Nanganganak
arrogant.
Brad, nanganganak.
Nanganganak
Brad ng arrogant. Mas matindi pang arrogant.
Vermon, kasama sa husgahan yung Brad.
Madami rin eh.
Yung hindi nagtuturo Brad, isasama sa husgahan.
Kaya nga ang gawin natin mo, at dumadami sila, dumadami rin yung makasalanan, pumunta na tayo sa maraming makasalanan. At i-invest natin yung ating time doon, ma-reach out natin yung unbelievers.
Okay.
No, di ba?
Magpadami tayo. Magpadami rin tayo.
Oo.
Para to balance. Magpadami rin tayo.
Para break even.
O, iiwan na lang natin ang arrogant servant.
At yung pagdami
naman sila doon.
Apostol Pablo, you have endurance to wait the judgments of God. No?
Tiis.
Oo.
Tiis muna.
Saka yung pagpapadami daw po, hindi po yung para may maraming tagasunod. The function of the leadership is to produce more leaders. Yun yung pagpaparami natin, mas marami pa maging leaders, hindi followers. Yun po ang aim talaga natin.
Mon, kung si Ramon, may sasakyan ka mo, di ba?
Sira ngayon.
Ha?
Sira ngayon.
Sira na. Meron namang mga jeep dyan, kasi pumupunta kasi sa kongregasyon na kung saan ay i-party sila doon sa sinasabi nating arrogant, abay, kailangan lumipat ka na niya sa Salawag. Hindi ka na magsama.
Saka Brother Bert,
Welcome ka doon, Mon. Welcome.
Yung effort mo na you try to reconcile, hindi naman napapakinggan. Sa tingin ko, yun din ang sinasabi mo sa kanila doon. No? At bingi sila. I think it's the right time na lumipat ka na ng kongregasyon sa Salawag. At gamitin mo na yung time at effort mo dyan sa Salawag. Don't waste your time to reconcile because
hindi, yung sinisimbahan ko naman, wala naman arrogant eh.
Ha?
Congregation din sa sambahan ko, wala pa naman eh.
Wala pa naman.
Wala pa naman.
Yung mga...
Wala pa naman. Ibig sabihin,
Parang yan sa tabi-tabi.
Parang may ano, parang may magkakaroon, Brad.
Para may tendency, no?
Bro.Bert, pwede ba yung mga arrogant servants, pwede bang marites yan sa mga faithful servant para makontrol yung mga arrogant? Para mapayuhan ba? Na,
Ano, yung marites ay hindi maganda. Ang ituro natin yung tama. Tamang doktrina ng Panginoon. Ano yung doktrina na tinuturo ng Apostol Pedro dito? Ay yung faithfulness, no? Yung pa natin dito, pinag-aralan natin dito. Ituro natin yung tama. At yung mga taong hindi nakakita ng tama, darating ang araw makikita nila yung tamang turo. At makikita nila na mali yung kanilang ginawa. Huwag natin ituro yung masama kasi alam mo, ay yung nangyari, no? Ituro natin yung tunang doktrina, no? Ng Panginoon. Kasi pag i-chismis natin yung nangyari, ay ano mangyari? Ang iglesia lalo masasaktan. May mga kapatid tayo na hindi pa sila makatay sa iglesia at narinig nila ito. Ay, ba't ganito mga Kristiyano ito? Akala ko tunay na church ito. Bakit merong paghati-hati? Di ba? We are teaching unity. Naghahati ito, no? There is something wrong with this congregation. Kaya iwanan natin sa likod natin yan at focus tayo sa pagpaparami. Reaching out the unbelievers. Reaching out the unfaithful, yung nawawala. No?
Door knocking tayo, door knocking. Evangelism, personal evangelism class muna.
Oo, tama. We need to train ourselves. Yun ang principle din doon sa Matthew. No? Bago ka lumabas, ay natanggap mo. Una ay kay Kristo Jesus ka. Pangalawa, natanggap mo yung turo para maituro mo sa iba.
Alright. Ayos. Yung plan natin, tama. Nasa pan tayo. On the right track. So, kailang Friday evening pala, supposed to be may class tayo kasi wala pa kay Brother Richard eh. Pero Friday evening, nasa biyahe ako, papuntang Cebu. So, reschedule yung ating class Friday evening. Yung personal evangelism yun, Brother.Bert eh. Personal evangelism yung Friday night sana. Sabi ko, 2 Fridays sana ang lecture.
Friday night, nagtuturo ako nun sa Tondo eh. Friday night.
Si Brother Richard ang magtuturo sana niyan, pero habang wala siya, personal evangelism class muna sana. Pero this Friday, hindi natin kaya kasi nasa biyahe ako. Mayroon lang Friday. Meeting sa Cebu, sa Carapal, may meeting kami. Oo. So, but anyway, we are on the right track. Magpadami na lang tayo. But counting training sa evangelism, saka na tayo sumabak.
Malay nyo, kita naman kayo ng tao na gagamitin ng Panginoon para magtatag naman ng maraming physical needs ng kongregasyon. Ano?
Oo.
Yan ang Panginoon. If nawala yung isang bagay, God will provide for another for that.
Okay. Closing prayer tayo. Brother Ryan, para makauwi kami, malayo pa kami.
Sige po, Brad. Let us pray mga kapatid. Dakilang Diyos, Ama, na nasa langit, kayo po ay lubos na maluwalhati at banal. Sa oras na ito ay nagpapatuloy ang aming pasasalamat sa inyo pong kadakilaan na kami po, Ama, ay binuklod mo sa gawaing ito ng pag-aaral ng iyong mga salita. Salamat po, Ama, sa iyong mga lingkod na mga noong Kristiyano at ang mga talata ng banal na kasulatan na kanilang naisulat sa pamamagitan ng iyong gabay ng Espiritu, Ama. pinapahayag mo sa amin sa oras na ito upang matutunan namin at maisabuhay kung paano mamumuhay ang tapat na lingkod at sa kabila ng mga palakid ng ginagawa ng diablo na aming kalaban upang kami po, Ama, ay masinsay o mawala sa focus. Salamat po, Ama, sa paalala ng salita upang sa gayon ay magtumibay kami sa pananampalataya, tahakin ang buhay ng banal na paglilingkod sa iyo, Ama. Kapiling aming mga kapatid, katulad sa platform na ito na nagpapalakasan ng pananampalataya sa bawat isa, nagbibigay encouragement upang may pagpatuloy namin, Ama, ang gawaing banal na pamumuhay Kristiyano. Salamat po, dakilang Diyos, sa aming mga kapatid, lalo tigit ang iyong mga lingkod na iyong ginagamit upang may padaroy ang iyong karunungan mula sa bagong henerasyon, Ama, na iyong tinitipon upang maging tagapanguna sa hinaharap din naman sa pagpapangaral ng salita. Salamat po sa aming mga kapatid na June, Bro.Bert, sa iba pa mga lecturer, mga teachers namin upang matuto kami, Ama, sa iyong mga salita. Salamat po sa kanilang karunungan na iyong pinagkaloob. Salamat po, dakilang Diyos, sa spirito ng kaunawaan sa iyong salita na inyong pinanguna sa kanila at pinapahayag iyong salita ng naayon sa iyong kalooban at sa paraan na palagi na unawaan ng bawat isa sa amin. Sa kabila, dakilang Diyos, ng aming mga suliranin sa buhay, especially po sa lahat ng pagtahak namin sa buhay nito ng may kahirapan sa mundong ibabaw, alam po namin, dakilang Diyos, na ito po hindi matatapos, na ito po hindi mamaliw habang narito kami sa balat ng lupa. Gayunpaman po, dakilang Diyos, alam po namin na ang iyong salita ay mananatiling tapat. Kami po ay aagapayan ninyo at patuloy na tutulungan na matiis at masurvive ang buhay Kristiyano sa mundong ito na may katatagan ng pananampalataya. Tulungan mo kami, Ama, na maging tapat hanggang sa huling sandali ng aming mga buhay. At pagtatapos nawa ng gawain namin sa gabing ito, samahan mo kami sa aming pag-uwi. At hindi lamang, Ama, sa pagtatapos ng gawain sa gabing ito, gayon din sa gawain namin sa mundong ito, ay makarating nawa ang bawat isa sa amin sa piling mo, Ama, sa walang hanggan sa langit. Ito po ang aming dalangin sa pangalan ni Jesucristo, ang aming tagapagligtas, magpasawalang hanggan. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Bro.Bert, maraming salamat po. Good morning.
Francis.
You, Bro.Bert.
Okay.
Babalikan na, Brad.
Thank you.
Brad,
Easy lang, ha?
pagka gusto mo sa lawag, Bradmon, pwede ka sa lawag, Bradmon. Kailangan pa namin ng isang June. Isa lang June namin dun eh.
Wala ka naman problema sa congregation
Salamat,
ko eh.
salamat, Bro.Bert.
Nakikita ko lang sa ibang congregation.
Pinag-iisipan niya, Bradmon.
Hindi, nakikita ko sa ibang congregation. Sa akin, congregation, wala naman mga salbahing steward. Mga iba dyan na congregation sa paligid natin. Alam ni Brother Ryan yan.
Ako na naman ang binanggit mo.
Binibita ka, binibita.
Kabisado ni Brother Ryan yan. Ikot-ikot na yan.
Okay, okay. I'm gonna leave now.
Indoor, Bradmon, indoor. Kasama mo kami sa endurance.